Hey, what's going on YouTube? So today we're going to be discussing RAW versus JPEG. I know it's an age-old thing, but hey, you know, it is what it is. It's an important element of photography. How can I explain this? I'm trying to do something a little different. What I've noticed is all the videos show pretty much the finished product, and they say, okay, well here's the JPEG and look at all this, and then here's the RAW file, and here's the difference between the two, and you have more detail. But I haven't seen anyone actually go through editing the exact same photo, one as a JPEG out of camera and one as a RAW out of camera, to show you the expanded parameters of adjustment when you shoot a RAW file versus the lack of adjustments available if you shoot a JPEG because the camera's already made all the decisions for you. And the side-by-side comparison while using the exact same editing parameters between the JPEG and the RAW, so you can see clearly the amount of detail that's lost when you're trying to edit a JPEG versus the amount of detail available when you're editing a RAW file. To explain how a JPEG and a RAW work, think of a JPEG as, I guess, a boxed meal that you buy at the grocery store. It comes with all the ingredients, they're already baked in. There's nothing you can do about it. You throw it in the microwave, heat it up, and you're good to go. Now, the only issue with that is, say you want slightly different flavor, but it's lacking ingredients. Well, like I said, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do to change it. With a RAW file, imagine having your own personal chef, and you say to them you want to have chicken parmesan. They give you all the ingredients and you can create whatever masterpiece you want with however much ingredients you want to use or how much you don't want to use. The decision's entirely up to you, but you have a lot more to work with in regards to how you're going to create your own masterpiece of a meal. That is like shooting RAW. It's giving you the capability to create a masterpiece of a photograph versus a JPEG where the camera is a boxed store-bought meal, and yeah, you can spice it up a little bit, add a bit of salt and pepper, or sprinkle a little bit of spice on it, but that's really the only amount of editing that you can do in regards to what's already being presented to you at the time. So I'm gonna show you exactly what the big differences are with an exact edit, line by line, highlights, shadows, whatever adjustments I make on the JPEG, I'm going to do on the RAW file, and you'll see for yourself how much actually gets destroyed in a JPEG, which is why you always hear, always shoot RAW. Okay, so here we have, I'm using DxO here, and so here we have the RAW file, DNG. You can see, well, actually, let's see, where was that? In the source image area, you can see the type, which is RAW format, and right here is the JPEG straight out of camera, which is RGB format. And yeah, so this is the RAW file here, which was exposed according to the camera's metering. This was exposed correctly for shadows and highlights and everything. Now, over on the right side, you see the histogram, and you can see, because the sky was really, really bright, I was shooting sort of into the sun. So what we'll do is we'll scroll down on the right side here, and you'll see the essential tools. So you've got your color temperature, corrections, all that stuff, smart lighting, contrast, accentuation for color, selective tone, highlights, midtones, shadows, blacks. And then if we keep going down after the tone curves, you'll see that there's additional options here: detail and geometry, optical corrections, chromatic aberration corrections, all that fun stuff, right? Now, if we go to the JPEG straight out of camera, you'll notice this panel on the right side immediately changed. So if I go to the DNG file, which is the RAW file, you'll notice that immediately that menu's not the same. And the histogram is different as well, if you look at the very top. Because the camera decided on its own to change some of the parameters to bake into the file. Now if we scroll down, you'll see some of the stuff is still the same. Selective tone, highlights, midtone, shadows, blacks, and all that stuff. But once we get down below the tone curve, the menu all of a sudden... Okay, actually no, there's still some stuff that's still the same. Let's see, we'll go back to D&G. Okay, yeah, so moire, dust, volume deformation, those are eliminated. That's all handled within the camera itself. Yeah, so there are some menu differences there. Now, on to the editing. So, this was exposed fairly accurately. However, the highlights are a little too much. So, we'll drop those highlights down. And now you can see there's more detail in the clouds here. It's still too bright up there. So let's see. If we bring it all the way down, let's see what happens. Yeah, it looks a little odd. We'll bring it back up a bit. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, I just took some quick snapshots just to give you guys an idea as to what this does. So you'll see here the histogram itself has moved over. Now I'm going to drop the exposure down a little bit to try to compensate for the highlights, and then I'll bump shadows up after. There we go. So now you can actually see there's a bit more detail here. This is still blown out, all this, but you can see there is a lot more detail with, you know, the gradients in the different hues and whatnot, and the shadowing within the clouds. Now if we come back here and I bring up the shadows a little bit to brighten up the surface area, and then drop the blacks down just to even it out. There we go. So, let's see, that's -3, 13, and -60. And that was, okay, -0.87. So, we will do the same thing to the JPEG file and see what that looks like. So -0.87 right there. Okay. Now highlights, midtones, shadows. That was -60. Okay, -60, 13, and 3. -60. Let's brought it up, 13, and 3. There we go. So you can already see all of this is still completely blown out because the camera's already thrown all that information away. So there's the RAW, exact same settings. If you look over here on the right, all the editing's exactly the same. See? Everything's exactly identical. Now if we zoom in, now if you look over on the left side, in this little window panel here, let's bring that up to the sky. Let's see, let's focus on this cloud area here. So this is completely and utterly blown out. There's no way that's ever going to come back. And now look at the detail in regards to the gradation and the shadowing of that cloud there. So let's go back to this one. It's completely and utterly blown out there. Let's bring it back to the full image view. Okay, now this one, the next one, is going to be overexposed. So this is completely overexposed here. And once that finishes loading, okay. Now let's try to bring this one down. See, the histogram is way over. If you don't know how to read a histogram, the left side is all the dark areas. This is all the mid-tone areas, and this is all the bright areas. So obviously it's overexposed, so everything's been pushed over to the right towards the bright. Right, bright. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop the exposure down. Too much? Yeah, it's a little too much. See, it's like it's hitting a wall here. So you need to spread that out a bit more. Now, technically, this is overexposed, and given the fact of the sun and the beams shining through, this is not going to be recoverable, but it'll still give you an idea as to the difference between RAW and JPEG. See if I bring that all the way down. It's like there's a complete and utter wall there entirely. Bring it up a little bit. Yeah, no, I don't like that. Yeah, it's a little difficult, but okay, we'll just go with that. So minus 2.15. And let's bring midtones back up a bit. 20. No. 12? Actually, let's bring that up a little bit. Bring the shadows up. Bring the darks down. Like I said, I mean, this was already overexposed anyway, which I did on purpose just to show how much of a difference this actually does make. So, let's see, where were we? We were at minus 2.15. So let's bring this down to minus 2.15. There we go. And if you look at the histogram here, these are all clipped. So this is beyond the pixel information already. That can be picked up because it's a JPEG and all that information is just gone. If you look at the histogram here, it's smooth. Look at this one, it's just complete jagged edges. Now, let's see, highlights, where was that? That was set to minus 88, 12, 12, and minus 3. So 88, 12, 12, and minus 3. Okay, so it's the exact same editing, and here's the difference. It's a huge difference. Even though this photo, I wouldn't even use this photo, but the difference between the information you get in a RAW file versus the JPEG file, I mean, this is just completely gray. There's no detail whatsoever. It's done. It's done. Done like dinner. Not a very good dinner, but it's done like dinner. Now this one is a usual photographic technique of underexposure, which a lot of people use in low light situations if they have to catch action and they don't want to raise their ISO. They'll underexpose it and then bring it back up in post. So what they'll do is they'll use the software to bring the exposure back up to where it should have been. So we'll go ahead and do that. And let's see, for the highlights, well, it's a little too much. Bring it down a little bit. 1.43. Okay, yeah, I think that's good. Bring the shadows up. A bit more deep, and there we go. A bit more color on the ground here. A little bit more color. We can just add a little bit of vibrancy, a bit of saturation. Try to bring out some blue in the sky. Okay, I think that should be alright. We drop the highlights down. Let's just see what happens here. Okay, so we've got a little bit more gradation in the sky there. With the histogram, yeah, that's not too bad. We could move it over a little bit more. Let's go a little bit more. spread. Alright, and let's just drop the highlights down a little bit more, see if we can get a bit more detail in the clouds. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Okay, so that is the RAW file. That's what it looks like. And now let's do the exact same thing to the final JPEG. So this is what the JPEG starts off as, underexposed. Okay, so that was plus 1.92. I'm just typing it in just to make it faster. Alright, oh man, look at that. Look at that. Woo, woo. Okay, let's see, minus 6, 7, 0, 23, and 3. Minus 6, 7. Let's do it. Minus 6, 7, where are you at? Minus 6, 7. So drop the highlights as far as possible there. Well, not as far as possible, but dropped it as the same amount as the RAW file. Let's see, 23. Bring the shadows up here to 23. And what was that? Minus 3. Alright. Now, let's deal with the vibrancy and saturation. See, now that's the tricky thing, because the camera's going to add its own contrast, micro contrast, vibrancy, saturation before it even converts the file to JPEG. So all of this is already pretty much in the JPEG. If you look at the sky here where it's all blue versus the RAW file where you have to actually do it yourself. Now this looks a little too much, at least to my liking. That doesn't look, that's not the way the sky was. Trust me, that was definitely not the way the sky was. I mean, we could match it here. Let's see, add a bit of contrast. Actually, no, you know what, let's just keep it exactly as I said it would be in the video. Could saturate it more though. Make it a bit more blue. Nope, not enough. Alright. Alright. Now we could do it down here. We'll just go to the blues and bring up saturation in the blues, but that's going to affect the snow as well. Oops. So want to lighten it, make it more rich. Yeah, so anyway, you get the idea. Even if I leave all of this the way it was and look at the difference between the two files, again, exact same editing, nothing is any different. I'll leave this panel there so you can see 1.92, minus 67, 23, minus 3. I'll bring these back down. And there's the JPEG. Exact same. 1.92, minus 67, 23, and oh, what happened there? Minus 3. That's weird. There we go. So there you have it. This is how much of a difference shooting RAW, where you can do all the editing and you have a lot more ingredients within the photo to work with, versus JPEG, that basically just, it is what it is. It's already packaged and delivered to you. And I mean, if you look at the right here, sorry, the left, let's zoom in there. Yeah, it's completely blown out. That information is never going to come back from the JPEG. And if we go to the RAW, to the same area, sorry, my laptop's pretty old, so it's a little on the slow side, unfortunately. But you can see all the little details, like you know, the subclouds here versus the JPEG. You can still see some of it, but all this is completely and utterly blown out. Actually, even underneath the street light here is completely blown out as well. Let's go up here, if ever the sky's blue. And there's no gradual changing in the JPEG with all the different variations of the gradation for the clouds and whatnot. It's just basically a hard line, super bright or not bright. There's no middle ground whatsoever. And if we bring this down towards the ground here, that's the RAW file, that's the JPEG file. So you can see that there's a lot more you can do with the RAW file than the JPEG file. You know, parameter by parameter. That's pretty much it. Let's just quickly go back down here. So this was the underexposed image, and this was the overexposed image. Oh man, yeah, look at that JPEG. That's just, what is happening here? Then there's the RAW. Man, what a difference. What a difference, eh? It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And then this was the one that was exposed more accurately. And there's the JPEG, and there's the RAW. Yeah, you can even see like the amount of detail lost in the JPEG. Like there's rays of sun coming through in these areas here. I don't know if you can see the hand moving around. And then if you look at the JPEG, it's completely washed away. Completely washed away. But that's pretty much, that's the massive difference between shooting RAW and JPEG. So as they always say, always shoot RAW. If you want the pictures to come out exactly as you envisioned it, because you are the artist, not the camera, you. It's you who takes the picture, it's you who has the vision, the camera's just the tool. Learn how to use the camera and get the most out of every available option you have. It's the only advice I can give. It's always worked. It's been like that forever, even from the film days. It's the fundamentals of photography. Anyway, CoBMC, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, that way and hit that bell. Definitely hit that bell so that you know the next time I upload a new video. Got a lot more in store for y'all. See you guys next time.